What if I told you that this video, which seemed completely ordinary, was actually the last moment anyone saw this girl alive? Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old young woman, disappeared without a trace from a hotel known for its dark history. Part 1. Arrival at the Cecil Hotel, a gateway to darkness. It was the last week of January in 2013 when Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old university student from Vancouver, Canada, arrived in Los Angeles. To the casual observer, she seemed like any other young traveler, a free spirit on a mission to explore the world and share her journey online. Her Tumblr page, a digital scrapbook of her life, reflected her thoughts, poetic musings about hope, despair, and everything in between. Elisa's posts hinted at struggles with mental health, but also a deep yearning for connection and understanding. Her trip, which she called her West Coast Tour, had started well enough. She'd already visited San Diego and was planning to continue north to Santa Cruz and San Francisco, but something was amiss. As her parents would later explain, Elisa had a habit of calling home every day, a ritual that reassured them despite the distance. That call would never come on January 31, 2013. Her choice of accommodation was the Cecil Hotel, a budget-friendly option located in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. On paper, the hotel seemed like a practical choice for a young traveler. In reality, it was anything but. From the moment it opened in 1924, the Cecil Hotel was a magnet for misfortune. It was designed as a luxurious destination for the rich, but the Great Depression turned it into a symbol of decline. Over the decades, the Cecil became infamous for its association with violence, death, and despair. Countless suicides, murders, and unexplained deaths had taken place within its walls. Two notorious serial killers, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and Jack Unterweger, had once called it home. Guests often spoke of a suffocating atmosphere, shadowy figures lurking in hallways, and strange noises that echoed through the night. Elisa checked into the hotel on January 26th. Initially assigned to a shared room, she was soon moved to a private room after her roommates complained of odd behavior. Hotel staff didn't elaborate, but some reports suggest Elisa was leaving strange notes for her roommates and acting erratically. This is where the darkness begins to creep in. Alone in a room within a building steeped in sorrow and sinister energy, Elisa Lam began the final days of her life. Part 2. The Final Days. Whispers of the Unseen. In her last known days, Elisa seemed to oscillate between moments of normalcy and unexplainable behavior. On January 30th, she visited the Last Bookstore, a beloved literary haven in downtown Los Angeles. The staff later described her as friendly, animated, and enthusiastic, seemingly excited about the books she'd picked out as gifts for her family. But there was something frenetic in her demeanor, an underlying restlessness that hinted at turmoil. The following day, January 31st, was the day Elisa was supposed to check out of the Cecil Hotel. She had plans to continue her journey north, but she never left the building. That evening, Elisa didn't make her daily call to her parents. Concerned, they contacted the police, setting off a missing person investigation. The search began quietly. Officers questioned hotel staff and guests, checked surveillance footage, and examined Elisa's belongings left behind in her room. Her laptop, clothes, and other items seemed untouched, as though she had simply stepped out for a moment and vanished into thin air. The police scoured the building, but found no trace of her. Then, on February 14th, 2 weeks after her disappearance, the LAPD released a piece of evidence that would thrust the case into the global spotlight: the now infamous elevator footage. Part 3. The elevator footage. A glimpse into terror. The grainy 4-minute video begins innocuously enough. Elisa steps into the elevator wearing a red hoodie, black shorts, and sandals. Her movements are unremarkable at first. She presses several buttons on the elevator's control panel, 4 or 5 in quick succession. Then, something strange happens. The elevator doesn't move, and the doors remain open. Elisa hesitates, stepping to the back corner of the elevator as though waiting for something, or someone. Her body language begins to shift. She peeks her head out into the hallway, quickly pulling it back, as if she's expecting to see someone but doesn't want to be seen herself. She steps in and out of the elevator, her movements increasingly erratic. What happens next is the most unsettling part of the footage. Elisa begins waving her arms in strange, almost otherworldly gestures. Her hands twist and turn as though she's communicating with something, or struggling against it. Her movements are fluid, yet unnatural, like a puppet on invisible strings. Then she steps out of the elevator entirely and disappears from view. For the remaining minute of the footage, the elevator behaves inexplicably. The doors close, open, and close again, as though malfunctioning. The entire scene feels charged with an unspoken dread, a sense that something malevolent is just out of frame. When the video was made public, it immediately went viral. Online sleuths pored over every frame, searching for clues. Theories ranged from the plausible to the absurd. Was Elisa being followed? Was she experiencing a psychotic episode? Or was something far more sinister at play, a force beyond human comprehension? Part 4. The Rooftop Discovery. A Nightmare Unveiled. The mystery of Elisa Lam's disappearance might have remained unsolved, if not for a chilling discovery made on February 19th. Guests at the Cecil Hotel had begun complaining about low water pressure, strange discoloration, and an unpleasant taste in the water. Maintenance worker Santiago Lopez was sent to investigate. The Cecil's rooftop was a desolate industrial space. 4 large water tanks loomed like silent sentinels, each over 8 feet tall and difficult to access. Lopez climbed up to inspect the tanks, lifting the heavy lid on one of them. What he found would haunt him forever. Elisa Lam's lifeless body, floating face up in the murky water. She was naked, her clothes and personal items, her watch and room key, floating beside her. The lid of the tank was reportedly closed when Lopez arrived, raising chilling questions. How had Elisa accessed the roof in the first place? The main door to the rooftop was locked and equipped with an alarm. The only other route was a fire escape, a perilous climb requiring someone to scale narrow ledges and ladders. And then there was the tank itself. Elisa would have had to climb onto the tank's platform, open the heavy lid, and lower herself inside. A task that seemed implausible for someone in a distressed or delusional state. Part 5. The Investigation. Unraveling the Enigma. The discovery of Elisa Lam's body in the water tank sent shockwaves through Los Angeles and the global media. Investigators were immediately flooded with questions. How did she get there? Was it suicide, an accident, or something more sinister? The Cecil Hotel's reputation only added fuel to the fire, and public fascination quickly turned into a phenomenon. The initial autopsy report confirmed that Elisa had drowned. However, there were no signs of trauma or foul play on her body. No bruises, cuts, or abrasions that could indicate a struggle. Toxicological results showed trace amounts of prescription medications consistent with her bipolar disorder diagnosis, but not enough to incapacitate her entirely. Detectives were quick to analyze the available evidence, starting with the elevator footage. They found that Elisa's behavior was both bizarre and difficult to classify. Forensic experts pointed out that her actions seemed disjointed, frenetic, almost unnatural, as though she were acting under duress or compelled by an external force. Some speculated that Elisa might have been experiencing a psychotic episode, a manic breakdown, or a severe case of paranoia brought on by her bipolar disorder. Meanwhile, investigators turned their attention to the roof. Security footage and maintenance logs showed no signs that the locked door leading to the rooftop had been tampered with, nor was there any record of someone using the fire escape during the time Elisa was missing. The only access point to the roof remained securely locked, adding to the mystery of how she managed to get up there. Part 6. Theories: The Many Facets of Darkness. As investigators continued to probe, theories began to surface. Each was more chilling than the last. Mental health breakdown. Some experts argued that Elisa's erratic behavior could be attributed to a manic episode triggered by her bipolar disorder. The strange gestures and paranoid expressions seen in the elevator footage were consistent with common symptoms. However, skeptics pointed out that Elisa seemed coherent and articulate at times, suggesting she was lucid enough to make detailed decisions, such as traveling alone across the country. Paranoia and delusion. The idea that Elisa believed she was being followed or watched had strong support. Paranoia could explain her behavior in the elevator footage, her repeated glances into the hallway, and her erratic movements. Online forums buzzed with theories that she was seeing things that weren't there, such as shadowy figures or hallucinated faces in reflections. Murder or foul play. This theory posited that someone might have targeted Elisa. The idea was popularized by the dark history of the Cecil Hotel itself, known for harboring violence and crime. Some suggested that Elisa's body could have been planted in the water tank post-mortem, with the crime occurring elsewhere in the building. Others pointed out the strength required to access the rooftop and the water tank, questioning if it could be managed in such a vulnerable mental state. Supernatural involvement. Given the strange nature of the elevator footage and the hotel's history of paranormal activity, a more supernatural explanation began to take root. Some theorized that Elisa was a victim of a ghost, a malevolent entity that haunted the building. They pointed to the constant discomfort and oppressive energy felt by guests and staff at the Cecil, combined with Elisa's bizarre movements in the footage as evidence of otherworldly interference. Theories circulated wildly online and among amateur sleuths. Some went as far as claiming that Elisa had been communicating with unseen entities, perhaps even trying to exorcise them during her strange movements in the elevator. Others speculated that she was attempting to warn someone about something or someone she couldn't see. Part 7. The Rooftop Details. The Physical and Psychological Struggle. The rooftop itself, with its tall water tanks and grim industrial appearance, added layers of tension and unease to the investigation. The distance between floors and the precarious nature of the climb made it unlikely that someone in distress, disoriented or confused, could navigate it safely. And yet, the locked door and secure perimeter only deepened the mystery. Maintenance workers who examined the rooftop described the feeling of oppressive silence and isolation. Some said it felt as though the building itself was alive, watching and observing them. The air was thick with an unidentifiable scent, part dust, part something else entirely. It was as though every exposed surface, every rusted pipe and peeling paint was steeped in the residue of sorrow and despair accumulated over decades of history. Several workers described hearing disembodied voices on the rooftop, whispers that seemed to drift in and out of earshot, difficult to pin down. The voices were muffled, incoherent, but unmistakably human. One worker, who refused to be named, claimed he heard someone softly calling his name while he checked the water tanks. When he turned around, there was no one there. Another worker reported feeling as though someone was breathing down his neck, sending chills down his spine as he lifted the tank lid and found Elisa's body inside. The very act of opening that tank felt like it required an enormous, almost supernatural force. The weight of the lid seemed impossible to move, yet it closed tightly, perfectly balanced.